Alaska Young, the love interest in John Green's Looking for Alaska, is a young girl whose suicidal warning signs are overlooked as a result of romanticization. Pudge, the main character, views her as a manic pixie dream girl, a trope identified in 2007 by film critic Nathan Rabin. This trope diminishes her value from personhood, turning her into a tool for growth. Because she was sexual and confident, her sadness and hopelessness were brushed aside. Her emotions were labeled as crazy, then ignored by her male counterparts. When she, I'm so sorry, spoiler alert, died, everyone in her life was surprised, regardless of the numerous borderline constant warning signs. This video discussing Alaska is going to be broken into 3 parts: Alaska as a character, crazy bitches, and suicide in women. Alaska. In this novel, Alaska is presented through her dialogue and through Pudge's perception of her. When we meet her, she's recounting a story between her and a childhood friend where he sexualizes her, even though she's not actually available as a prospect to him because she's currently in a relationship. This situation serves as a precursor to her relationship with Pudge, where instead of him seeing this and actively working not to fall into the same camp as the boy from the story, he instead views her exclusively as a sexual conquest. To prove this, he thinks to himself, "The hottest girl in human history was standing before me in cut-off jeans and a peach tank top." This is the first step that he takes in dehumanizing her. The way that Pudge views Alaska is typical of the manic pixie dream girl. This trope was defined by Nathan Rabin as a character who is odd and ethereal with no personal growth for herself, who is instead a developmental tool used to enrich and change the life of a male protagonist. This trope serves to praise female characters for being different while actually enforcing patriarchal norms. For example, Alaska can be seen grappling with the cult of true womanhood, which is discussed in M. Larson's 2022 thesis, The Penalization of Agenic Female Characters in Literature, an analysis of the awakening and Looking for Alaska. In this thesis, Larson describes the cult of true womanhood as an ideology that describes the ideal woman, which was generated in America in the late 1800s. The ideals are piety or religion, purity, submissiveness, and domesticity. Alaska upholds arguably none of these ideals. She contemplates big life questions like how to escape suffering, but instead of turning to religion, she turns to authors and artists to answer these questions. She isn't pure. Sex and sexuality are big pillars of her personality. She states in one of her first one-on-one conversations with Pudge, "But there is so much to do. Cigarettes to smoke, sex to have, swings to swing on." She certainly isn't submissive. She makes a point to stand up for her friends. She goes out of her way to take punishment for them when they're all caught breaking rules together, and she even gets kicked out of class defending them. Side note, it's important to know that these traits are not appreciated by Pudge. In a moment where Alaska is pushing back against patriarchal standards by being assertive, Pudge thinks to himself, "She's cute, but you don't need to like a girl who treats you like you're 10. You've already got a mom." Finally, she is not domestic. Her plans for a future don't involve anybody but herself, certainly not a partner. It's evident that as a person, Alaska has depth and individuality. However, regardless of her pushback against feminine ideals, she is still viewed by the narrator as an object of lust and admiration. According to Jay Gauck and Al Penny, the Pixie is built on that which is visible and visual, and because of this focus on the surface rather than depth, she is never a point of view character, and she isn't understood from the inside. Whenever Alaska dares to be a full, feeling person, her emotions are swept aside by her male counterparts, and instead they label her a crazy bitch. Crazy bitches. Don't you know who you love, Pudge? You love the girl who makes you laugh and shows you porn and drinks wine with you. You don't love the crazy, sullen bitch. And there was something to that, truth be told. There are several points throughout the book where Alaska is saying directly that she is suffering. But her friends do not engage with the side of her until it is too late. Instead, they become frustrated with her elusive demeanor. What's even more heartbreaking is that Alaska is fully aware of this emotional boundary between her and her friends. They love the girl who makes them laugh, not the crazy, sullen bitch. Additionally, Alaska is vulgar and oftentimes morbid throughout the book. She says things like, "Did I tell you that Jake is hung like a horse and a beautiful, sensual lover?" And "Y'all smoke to enjoy it, I smoke to die." These phrases, while concerning in the context of her death, were seen as jokes by her peers at the time of her saying it, meaning they could categorize them in the other side of the crazy coin, fun. Instead of fun crazy, Larson describes this as acting out, as in to behave badly because you are unhappy or upset, often in ways that you're not fully aware of. Alaska's abundant wit and forward sexuality led her male friends to ignoring her emotional needs and boiling her down to a crazy bitch in her most vulnerable moments, which leads me to my last point, suicide in women. At this point, it's obvious that it's mentioned many times in the book that Alaska is sexually experienced and promiscuous. It is stated that it's a shock that she hasn't cheated on her boyfriend at the start of the story, and we also learn that she chain smokes cigarettes. Because of these traits, it's implied that Alaska is more mature than her peers, implying that she can handle adult problems. But is that fair? Can that even be true? Alaska is a junior in high school in this story. That makes her about 16. That is barely old enough to drive a car in the state of Alabama. And she's already buying alcohol in bulk, has had sex with multiple partners, and is chain smoking at just 16. In the book, Pudge sees all of these traits as qualifiers of importance. Alaska is a means to an end, a checkpoint on his quest for a great perhaps, his manic pixie dream girl. But to me, an adult woman, these traits are screams for help. They show me a young girl in need. According to a 2003 report by Johnson, Noahs, and Rector, sexually active teenagers are more likely to experience depression than their non-sexually active counterparts. Of teen girls who engage in sex, 25.3% report feeling depressed all, most, or a lot of the time. In comparison, this percentage is only 7.7% in teen girls who aren't engaging in sex. Dr. Meg Meeker attributes this to the psychological turmoil that comes with the territory of sex. It leads to empty relationships, to feelings of self-contempt and worthlessness, all of which we see in Alaska. In another jarring comparison, the same research found that 14.3% of sexually active girls attempted suicide, and only 5.1% of non-sexually active girls have. When you read this book through a lens of validating and recognizing feminine pain, Alaska's suicide does not come as a surprise. It's important to note that while tragic, we have to resist the urge to romanticize Alaska's suicide. This book often positions Alaska as the world's hottest girl who bubbled over with energy and silliness and intelligence, making it easy to lump her depression and pain into the list of attractive things about her. It is dangerous for young readers to read this book, relate to Alaska's suffering, and then compensate by viewing themselves the way that Pudge viewed Alaska. Suffering isn't sexy. Not allowing people to help you isn't sexy. Most importantly, suicide is not sexy. While we're at it, the role of a woman is not to be sexy. What we can take away from looking for Alaska is the risk associated with devaluing women from people to objects of desire in both literature and in life. Characters and people who are pigeonholed into the position of a manic pixie dream girl, ignoring their complexity and pain isn't only a disservice to their character. It is a matter of life and death.